Yeah, yeah.
That's a pretty chill room.
Oh, yeah. So tiny. Thank you. Bye, it's 6:30. Turn our meeting. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Sorry. Hold on, sorry, it's my diabetes monitor thing, and it's like going off. Are you okay? I am okay. It's connected to kind of reader room. Yeah, it is. I think it's saying it's not connected, and that's why it didn't go up. Well. Okay, we should be good. Should be good. Okay, it is 5:31, and we're gonna call the city council special meeting for the city of Council, July 22nd. Roll call, please.
Councilor Penamara,
Here.
Councilor Medina,
Here.
Councilor Greider,
Here.
Councilor Martin,
Here.
Councilor Perry Miller,
Here.
Mayor Ayers Flood. You have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, I'm gonna ask if there are any additional agenda items for tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff would request a new item prior to adjournment, and that would be minutes for the June 18th regular council meeting.
June 18th, council minutes.
Correct.
So adjournment will be item number E
Correct.
for the record. Any others? All right, at this time, we'll open up public testimony regarding the proposed public safety surcharge. Do you have any staff reports before we get started, Alex?
Mayor, the only thing that I would add to what you have previously received is staff have been doing. We recognize that proposing a new significant fee based on trip generation would likely provoke a lot of scrutiny on exactly how we're calculating those trips. So we've done an audit of both the transportation fee and what the public safety surcharge fee would be based on the latest Institute for Traffic Engineers trip generation numbers. The folks who came to the open house tonight I shared a spreadsheet with them. We'll all be putting that online tomorrow, and also plan to do a mailing to all of the non-commercial customers, all the non-residential customers, to make them aware what their current transportation fee is, what I believe their transportation fee ought to be. And I think that's I have yet to review the code. I don't think that would require an ordinance change. I think it's just a refinement of the staff work and what the proposed public safety fee would be. For council's awareness, there are the transportation fee. There are a few that do go up, none significantly in terms of dollars, some quite significantly in terms of percentage, because they were extremely low. We had a few 3,000 square foot medical office buildings that were being charged $4 on the transportation fee. But so all that information will certainly be in your packet, but that's the only additional information that you weren't previously aware of.
Thank you, Alex. So I just want to clarify that when you say, for the record, when you say we wouldn't see another ordinance, but is that suggesting that a fee increase is already built in, a periodic fee increase is already built into the ordinance?
I should say that I think I started by saying I hadn't reviewed the ordinance, but that's what I should have said. I'm not 100% sure as I sit here tonight, whether that would require an ordinance to update those calculations or not, but be prepared to request that on August 5th if needed.
Staff would very request that.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments before I go ahead and open the calling speaker request? Alex, I'll ask if you check online, see if there are any speaker request forms while I start with paper forms. And first up to speak is Melissa Mitchell. Is it who? Hoagie, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no additional.
You'll state your name and city for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Melissa Mitchell Hoagie and I live in Ashland.
And Melissa, I don't think we mentioned, I think the 5 minutes is probably the appropriate time limit. I'll keep that time and I'll sort of wave at you if you get to 1 minute left. So make it work.
Right. Okay, I'll keep it short. So good afternoon and thank you for holding this. I've learned a lot in the open house. I want to say thanks to Dana and to Chief Shook here. Just got a lot of good information. I sent you all an email yesterday. Hopefully you got that. So my husband and John and I own the old historic building at 106 Talent Avenue for the past 20 years. So we've kind of been behind the scenes for a long time and have fallen in love with talent. So we spend a lot of time here and yeah, just absolutely love it. When I saw this chart, I got a little concerned for businesses, for small businesses. It, like, for example, it shows with this new trip generation method that a grocery store could go from paying $22 a month for public safety surcharge to $505. It just seems like a really big leap. And also 4% right now with businesses supplying 4% of that public safety surcharge changing to 25%. That is also a large leap. And I question basing it on trips from the ITE journal. That's an international journal, and this is talent. It's a small town. But I do feel a little bit better after talking with Dana and the chief of police about that. Still kind of confusing, especially since so I was feeling sorry for Ray's, and then I looked at our bill and we're being charged the same amount. And it was just all sort of confusing and confounding. But I am assured that we are considered a retail strip mall and not a grocery store, even though we're currently paying the same amount as Ray's. And ours would go up to about $40. So feeling a little bit better about that, but also just still really concerned about small businesses, what this means. We all, speaking for my husband and I, we're concerned for our tenants who are all very small businesses and also just, sorry, I lost my train of thought. We just, don't want to see such a dramatic increase. And we frankly, we just like to be able to understand the system better and have a little more logic behind it, because it seems like if you're using trip charges to base this increase on, then that really relates more, in my mind, to road maintenance, transportation issues, buses, I don't know, stuff of the transportation nature. So I'm trying to understand it better. I appreciate, I guess, and it sounds like more information's forthcoming. That's great. I'd like to be learning more about this. I don't want to see businesses leave talent or be discouraged for any reason from starting a business in talent, especially after what happened with the fire and so many businesses were wiped out. And we want to just encourage small business and want to just thank you for your time and all the work that you do.
Next on the list is Karen McKnight. Karen, please come forward, state your name and city for the record.
Hi there. My name is Torrin McKnight. I'm a resident of Jackson County, and I went to school in the Phoenix Talent School District. I'm an organizer with Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers, which is an anti-fascist group, and I'm one of many organizers with the Bear Creek Social Center, which is an all-volunteer run community space located next to the Crown Market here in Talent. We put on a lot of free shows, have a food pantry, and do a lot of community building with young people here in Talent. I know the city has legitimate concerns around the budget deficit that's currently happening, and the city, as well as teachers, parents, and other community members, have legitimate safety concerns. The city is discussing raising the public safety fee by almost 50%, from $5.66 to $10.50 per household, and much more for businesses. And while that increase isn't huge monetarily, it is something. It is raising the cost of living for Talent residents. Talent is a working class community where what seems like a small amount to some may be the difference between being able to buy food, fill up their cars, or pay rent. And while a small increase in the cost of living does concern me, it is far from my biggest concern. My biggest concern is the city's desire to give more taxpayer money to police in this community. As I said earlier, I went to school in the Phoenix Talent School District. I went to Talent Middle School and then Armadillo Community Charter School in Phoenix, where I graduated in 2021. And I'll be the first to admit I was a problem child. I was getting in fights and I was disruptive. And in the experiences that I had with school resource officers, I felt intimidated, scared, and unsafe. And while I was what some might call a problem child, I was and am also autistic. I had trouble understanding social cues and regulating my emotions. What eventually helped me when I went to Armadillo in Phoenix is that I had adults that understood what I was going through and talked to me. When I had teachers and counselors that empathized with me, that mediated conflicts with me, that's when my behavior and my quality of life changed. For many people that look like me, it's easy to see police in our community and feel like we're safer. But when you look at actual statistics, what makes communities more safe is prioritizing resources like housing, food, and lowering the cost of living, not raising it. Talent is a community that many immigrants have found safety in. I remember when I was attending Talent Middle School, many of my classmates were children of immigrants. We are already dealing with ICE in our community kidnapping people. Rogue Valley Migrant Watch has witnessed ICE use any arrest, conviction, or charge as a reason to kidnap people, even if someone is charged for a crime without a conviction, which means any increased interaction with law enforcement is putting our immigrant neighbors at risk. More police presence means more kidnappings, more brutalization, more deportations, and more families torn apart. The city is trying to recoup $300,000 in its budget. I propose we cut the school resource officer entirely and cut policing around the city and look into solutions that are both cheaper and more effective. For example, how many retirees in Talent do you think would love the opportunity to go in schools and talk to kids? How many mediators and people with conflict resolution skills would be down to volunteer their time to help students that are struggling, rather than spending the public's hard-earned money to send armed police into the schools to intimidate students like myself? I realize this is all easier said than done, but it can be figured out, and I urge you to look for more creative solutions to this deficit than raising the cost of living and further funding the police. Thank you.
Next up is Anna Zegstrom. Please state your and city for the record.
My name is Anna Zegstrin and I live in Talent. Good evening. Like I just said, my name is Anna Zegstrin. I own Sweet Beach Station here in Talent. I'm a Talent resident and I serve on the board of the Talent Business Alliance. Tonight, I'm speaking in all of those capacities, but mainly as a business owner and on behalf of the concerns I've heard across the local business community. I want to start by saying that I trust this council very much, and I appreciate how difficult this budget challenge is for both council and staff. Public safety funding matters to everyone in Talent, and I very much support a well-funded city government. My concern is with using the trip generation, a metric bill for transportation planning, to allocate the public safety surcharge for commercial accounts. It has no established link to how much businesses actually use police services. Under the current system, Talent businesses generate about 4% of public safety surcharge revenue, reflecting the fact that our community is primarily residential. Under trip generation, that jumps to roughly 25%. For my own restaurant, that means going from about $11.32 a month to over $90 a month, which is over $1,000 a year. And for reference, In 9.5 years running Sweet Beet Station, I can only think of 3 occurrences where the police have been called to my business, and I'm grateful for that. If the city has data showing that businesses generate a disproportionate share of police calls, I believe that information should be made public before asking businesses to shoulder such a significant increase. If that data doesn't exist, I don't believe that trip generation is the right metric for this fee. Other Jackson County cities facing the same budget pressures, Central Point, for example, have chosen flatter, more modest commercial increases without this kind of disproportionate jump. And this isn't just about one business. And as we all know in this room, we've all said it many times, Talent has lost 60% of its businesses in the Almeda fire. Those of us that remain, mostly small local operators, have carried that recovery through a pandemic and years of economic strain. A steep, uneven fee increase adds real risk for businesses still finding their footing. I'd ask the council to consider 2 paths that the city has already identified in its own materials. To close this budget gap by placing the public safety levy on the ballot, so voters can decide directly whether to fund the city's current level of police service through their property taxes. And also, if trip generation does move forward in any form, phasing it in over several years rather than all at once. I love this community. Everybody that knows me knows that. Sweet Beet Station exists because I chose to invest in talent, and our business community wants to be part of the solution here. I can say that unequivocally. I just hope that the method used reflects actual need and gives everyone a fair chance to adapt. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Next is Rick Harris. Please come forward to the lectern and state your name and city for the record.
Good evening. My name is Rick Harris. I live in Talent. I am a business building owner in town and I've had a lot of discussion ahead of this meeting for what I consider an inappropriate approach to try to solve the public safety needs of town. Typically speaking, broad-based community services are taxes. They're not fees. Broad-based community services should be put in front of the voters, not to those who are less likely to vote, in my personal case, unable to vote on whether there's a giant increase. And I appreciate what owners of Sweet Beet and Hills Stern have had to say, because when you look at the numbers, when you look at the charts, using a formula for usage automatically mischaracterizes what we have going on in town. So I'll give you some examples of that. First, when you think about Art Bop, which is directly across the street from my building, because of their square footage, 1215 square feet, and being considered a brew pub, they have significantly less traffic generation than one of my tenants, which is Morton's. And the interesting issue about that is it's using the square footage of the building, not the square footage of the use. So if you look at Art Bop, they have 215 square foot of use and almost that same amount of outside use and outside seating. So it's a fallacy to use that way of clarifying. I look at Talent Maker City, who was my tenant before they moved to their new building. They're in a fairly large building. Their numbers did not change. I can tell you that they were my primary trip generator when they were in my building. And so nothing against them. I love them. They're great people. But the notion that they're contributing 95 trip generations a day where my own building is generating 345 just doesn't add up. A couple more. Friends Church. So we got a couple of different churches. Friends Church is a big building. It's 12,000 square feet. And Empowered Life, which are people that I know well, have 6,500 square feet. Empowered Life has a congregation of 75 people and the Friends Church has a congregation of 15. And yet they have double the trip generation based on the square footage. If you think about Denise O'Brien with her little tiny coffee shop, she would love to have 52 clients every single day. which is the trip generation divided by two, coming and going. And arguably speaking, businesses in town are serving the community. So who is doing those trips? Members of the community, primarily. And so we had some discussion ahead of time about whether there's a nexus between the amount of trip activity and the police activity. Clearly, in some cases, there is more. Is it 25% more? It doesn't add up. It just simply does not add up. And in my own building, Wagner Plaza, I have 5 different tenants. I have a restaurant. I have the Democratic Central Committee. I have 2 counseling sessions and 1 retail. I am classified as a 40,000 square foot or less retail strip center. I have 1 retail client because retail in our marketplace doesn't work in 5 sets of those. So I would just argue that as we work our way through, the appropriate way to deal with this is to bring a public service levy. And I'm talking ahead of time, I'm talking to Alex ahead of time. Be great if we could get that passed. Well, guess what? If it's important, we can get them passed. I remember working on library levies. I remember working on public service levies other places. If it's a story that's appropriate to tell, people will vote for it. And if we can't defend it that way, but look at basically dividing our community between those who live here and those who have business here, and saying the business ought to pay 25% and the residents ought to pay 75%, it's basically creating great separation between those who live here and those who work here, and quite frankly, make people not want to work here. So I would just argue, I think your numbers are based on fallacious information or false sense of trip generation. I can tell you, I don't have minus 354. I don't have 175 people coming to my building every day, all day long. I don't have it. And so the calculation is based on inappropriate information. And then secondarily, when you have a public safety issue, that gets on the tax roll. It should not be fee-based. I appreciate your time. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you. Next speaker is Derek Wolcott. Please come forward and state your name and city for the record.
Derek Volkart, just a bit outside talent. I own a smaller note with a bank, inside talent, over on Bain Street. Thanks for having this tonight and hosting the open house. It was nice to be able to talk to Chief Snook and Alex before. I just have basically one suggestion, and I talked to Alex about that, and that is, I was kind of hoping that what I now understand is called the PSU study. That is the City of Ashland and Talent funded study to look at the efficiency idea of whether it was combining services with neighboring municipalities for police and public safety services, or it was an IGA. I'm not particularly clued in on the details. I was hoping to get informed on that tonight, and I think that would help. It feels like that information that has taken place in the last few years would be helpful to the community. Maybe even it might help sell the notion of the increase. I don't know, having not seen it. It's on my mind because as an elected member of the fire board, we're at JC Fire 5, we're likely to sign an agreement in the near future with Fire District 3 because, well, there's lots of debt involved from mismanagement and potential malfeasance, but the increased cost in the fire district world is probably similar to what you see in public safety for the police department as well. Apparatus, engines, everything, the cost is through the roof. And so the efficiencies gained with the IGA will probably serve Fire District 5 very well. And so I think that would be great information for the community to have and for counselors to look at as well, and to see what analysis was done with Ashland, Phoenix, and the county for pooling that service. And so that's my suggestion, that you take a look at that, and thank you all for your service. And good luck.
Thank you. Next speaker request form is Dan Housen. Please come forward and state your name and city for the record.
Thank you. Dan Hauser. I'm with Camelot Theater in Talent, Oregon. I just would like to stress, again, we appreciate your time and involvement in this decision. It's difficult. This is going to be devastating to a lot of businesses. They're already out of business. They're struggling. Camelot is a large driver of bringing people to this community, and we take pride in that because we're a nonprofit that focuses on arts, culture, entertainment, and education. It's a little different than a for-profit business, and that should be structured differently in the trip generation process. But again, the other businesses are going to suffer because of the way it's set up. The other thing I wanted to point out, that the traffic attendees that come to the theater also go to dinner, they go to wineries, they go to other things, make an evening of it. So that traffic is going to have crossover, and that's not addressed in how the calculation is made. So I kind of respectfully ask the committee to really think that through, because this is really a kind of a flawed model. And I'll follow up on the gentleman back here was saying, it doesn't represent our community. We're a different kind of beast here, and this doesn't help. The other thing, the inconsistency, and I'll be talking to the committee here in the next couple of weeks. The theater has been trying to get a marquee and better able to promote our shows to get more business into our theater. And we're getting a lot of roadblocks from the commission, the planning commission. It seems inconsistent that we're going to be taxed more for bringing people, yet we can't get ourselves the ability to promote ourselves better and more effectively. And we'll be talking about that with you on our appeal, which is already submitted. So again, I would just encourage you to consider nonprofit versus profit in the calculation and the carryover, because there is a lot of crossover in traffic between our business, other businesses down, and I think there's going to be a better model. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll check one more time since this meeting was actually called to be able to take public testimony if we have any speaker request forms online.
My computer has frozen. Karen, do you have access to that public testimony? Great, thanks. So Karen can view that on her computer as well. It sounds like we have no additional requests.
Correct.
Good. Next item on the agenda is to discuss testimony and proposed public safety surcharge increase. I'm going to ask Councilor Whitfield and Hassan to Karen. So I will go ahead and open it up for discussion. If the staff wishes to open the discussion.
Yeah, if I could share a couple things. One, I repeatedly make the mistake, and I apologize, using international for the I in ITE. It is Institute for Traffic Engineers, and all the data is from the US. I also want to note that part of the proposal will be to include an appeal process. And I think if in the case where there are multiple users and they want to see if they would have a smaller fee if we were to evaluate each of the individual tenants, I think that certainly, I will include that possibility. I'd also share that the 75-25 split between the commercial and the residential users was something we came to by looking at trip generation itself. So we looked at, so that was from that same methodology, and I've talked to Chief Snook about what additional data we could share with you that might ground truth, whether that's an accurate balance of the need for police. The gentleman from Camelot mentioned the idea of crossover travel. The term that ITE uses is pass-by trips. And that is actually a part of the calculation. For instance, gas stations are rarely, are in a minority of cases, the actual destination. So there's actually a 65% discount against their trip ends. So that is part of the calculation. And finally, one of the things I'd really welcome from council this evening as we are preparing to do additional mailing is this, the spreadsheet that I'm planning on posting later this week does include fees for both the library and the schools. And we are not currently charging these kinds of fees to city facilities. And so it seems to me that exempting local government entities might be a logical step. So I'd appreciate your input off whether if that's an obvious answer, I'd rather not raise that firestorm. But thank you, Mayor.
Comments or questions? Carry on.
Thank you, Mayor. Alex, based on what you just said, can you give us a ballpark idea of what I mean, I don't know what those fee increases would even look like, so I don't know.
Yes, so I could give you some examples if you like. So on already shared what it would look like for Sweet Beet Station. So first of all, I think that the current transportation fee of $12.75 is not accurate. I'm pretty confident that Sweet Beet Station, which also pays the utilities for the upstairs, are generating more trips than 3 households. So that fee would go up to $27.95. And the proposed public safety surcharge is $93.77, and that is based on an estimate of 123 trips per day in that building. Another Camelot Theater, I think is worth noting, as we heard something about that tonight. I believe that our current transportation fee is actually high. That's currently $25.50. I believe that should be adjusted down to 17. And the calculation that's proposed would establish their public safety fee at $56. There are, would you all like, maybe you could share some other types of examples that you'd like to hear?
Yeah, thanks for letting me follow up. I should have been more specific. I was mostly meaning like the library and the schools, because I know that we had talked about that before, and I just don't know that I fully understand what that would look like for them.
Absolutely. So the middle school, which I believe has approximately 450 students, according to this methodology, would generate 945 trips. We're currently charging them 200. We're already charging them $250 a month in transportation fee. And this proposal would their public safety fee would be as much as $700. Well, that's $722 is what I calculated at. The elementary school was quite similar, and the library was also quite high. This is sorted by address, and I'm pretty sure the library is at 100 block of Home Street. Yeah, the library, we'd estimate to have 379 trips per day. And I think its current transportation fee is significantly undercharged, assuming that we want to charge the library that fee. But the proposed public safety surcharge for the library would come out to $290 a month.
Council Greider?
Do you have any follow-up, Counselor?
No, you can go. I have other questions, but yeah.
I'm curious, Alex, you mentioned gas stations and there being a discount for the pass-through trips.
Is there information then on how that is calculated for other businesses or?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So one of the things that I realized I hadn't posted yet is sort of a detailed walkthrough of the whole methodology. So that's one of the things that we'll post tomorrow. But basically you start out, you look at what kind of land use are we talking about here? So say it's a supermarket. And then you look in the manual, I think it's Appendix 4 of this enormous set, and you look up supermarket, and then they have an estimate which is based on anywhere from 5 to 20 different traffic impact studies, and they have an estimate of the number of daily trips per 1,000 square feet. So they do sort of a correlation of business size to the number of trips that have been documented, and then they give you an average. So then and then that number is adjusted for the pass-by factor. And if I remember correctly, the supermarket pass-by discount was about 50%. So they're saying about 50% of those trips are on the way somewhere, or they're on their way somewhere else. So you reduce that average by 50%. And so then you multiply the number of units, the number of 1,000 square feet times that adjusted average, and that gives you your daily trip number. And then the fee that's proposed here is essentially 75 cents per month per daily trip generated.
Is there any difference in there for nonprofits?
There's not currently. The nonprofits, they're categorized as they would be and I will say, you know, the ITE data is really good in some places. It's not great in every place. And one of the struggles is a use like Talent Maker City is tricky to identify what the right land use to put it into. I put it into manufacturing as my first try today. That's what generates the very low number that was noted by, I think, Rick. Whether that's absolutely right, I'm frankly struggled with a little bit, but part of my thinking was that they are a nonprofit. So I erred on a lower categorization, but those categorizations are subjective. And I think that's part of why we'd want to have an appeal process.
Okay, that was going to be, sorry, that was my last follow-up. That was going to be my next question, being sort of new to this, and kind of jumping in, was, yeah, how flexible, are those decisions? And I can imagine that would be a lot of work for you if there was many changes to be made, but, would a theater, you know, would a nonprofit theater be listed as a pass-through destination? And so if not, then is there flexibility there?
The theater is another use that does not have a perfect land use category in the manual. I think the suggested method in the manual would not be to discount the theater for pass-by trips, but actually reflect that in the restaurant. So restaurants have a pass-by factor, acknowledging, right, sometimes you go to the theater as was expressed, and then you go to dinner nearby. But to your larger point, I think traffic engineers love to pretend that they have a science. It's not. There are subjective decisions and the data isn't perfect. So I think it is important that we have an opportunity for an appeal. All those things being said, I do believe strongly this is a pretty good proxy for police services. And that's why Grants Pass has adopted it. That's why Central Point has adopted it in part. But what Central Point has done is really squished it down, essentially, as was mentioned. They've really they're using it proportionally among the businesses, but they've sort of put a limit on the total share of businesses. Grants Pass has used a method that's more similar to ours. I think their top tier is on the order of $2,500 a month.
Counselor Martin?
Thank you. A couple of things, mostly just a thought to start. I'm hearing a lot of the community's feelings about loving small businesses, and I think Talent's really special for that, especially coming out of the fire. Coincidentally, I had 2 conversations on the same dog walk yesterday with different community members about wanting more small businesses to come to Talent and comparing Talent to Phoenix post-fire. And I know Talent and Phoenix are both very different towns, but I'm just hearing a lot of people expressing love of small business and concern about how this could affect small businesses. And I also hear the concern of the inaccuracy, which you kind of spoke to, Alex, but of using something like this on a small town like Talent with businesses that are, having a hard time, as a lot of small businesses across the world probably are. My question is, do you know of other examples of places that are using this kind of report to, like you mentioned, Grants Pass and maybe another one just now, they're using that same report to base a trip fee off of?
Correct.
They are.
Yes.
And how long, can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how long those cities or towns have been using that model?
Not long.
Not
So Central Point, I think, adopted that approach within the last year and a half. And Grants Passes, I don't think dates back before 2023, 2022 kind of timeframe.
Okay. Yeah, good to know. I guess want to point to, neither of those places were affected by the fire, and those businesses are, or those places are definitely, I would say, in a very different position than Talent, but still learning. So thank you for answering that.
Of course.
Before I call the next, I think it's a good opportunity as we have these types of conversations to add additional information for new members that come on board. And one of the significant differences between the development that's happening in Phoenix and Recovery and Talent is that they use their urban renewal for fire recovery, millions of dollars that they have as a tool. And our community chose not to use that tool and voted it down. Just a matter of fact. And so it's kind of apples and oranges when we talk about recovery. And I think that's an important thing to point out, because I think it informs all of our choices that we make, that we have to make alternative choices because of the difference of funding mechanisms. Thank you for indulging me a minute. Councilor Medina?
And thank you for that. I kind of had an idea that was it, but that made it a lot more clear.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh, you mentioned like having an appeal process. Do you know if the city of Grants Pass and city of Central Point have something similar? Because it sounds like, some of these categories, some of these places don't have like a clear cut black and white category. So just interested in hearing more about that.
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure that they do. But obviously happy to learn from that and see what their structure is. I suspect they have some form, whether how formal or it is or not. But happy to bring that back.
I just want to add one more comment to the comment I made earlier. I said it the other day, and I think it characterizes it. We both of our cities are recovering at the speed of funding. And so the funding that we just have different funding mechanisms, and our community asked us to take that longer, slower road, trying to get grants and address our fees and taxes where their funding is regular and significant. So the recovery at the speed of funding, it really describes both of the communities. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to go back to Councilor Perry Miller, and then I'll come to you, Councilor Greider.
Thank you. Alex, I had a follow-up question from a previous meeting about how this would affect people who have home-based businesses and if it would have an effect on them.
So my starting assumption was to look at only those businesses that are already being charged a transportation fee, or that are categorized as commercial in our billing process. There were a couple that appear to me that potentially are home-based businesses in this spreadsheet that are a little bit of a gray area. So the answer is no, I didn't start looking for home-based businesses. There are a couple in the list that I'm working from, and I want to make sure, take a closer look and see if whether they're functioning as a home-based business or there is some additional sort of customer traffic that would suggest that we should be charging them for the non-residential activity as well.
Counselor Greider?
In regards to the appeals, I think also it's okay if you don't have the answer to this, but I'm just curious, because obviously we're not there yet, but if this were to go through in this way, then would want businesses to have that opportunity, but would that be something what would that process look like? Would that be something that you made that decision, or and do you see that kind of getting bogged down with how would that look for your capacity?
I don't think it's given the scale of what's being proposed here, I think it's totally appropriate, and I think we've got the capacity to do it. We're talking about a total universe of only 100 customers. So I think, just my initial read of it, I would be surprised that there are more than 25 that would appeal. I think there are, I don't mean to discount the concerns among those 25 who might appeal, but I think there are a lot on there that I would be surprised that they want to spend the time to present a case.
Counselor Martin and then Counselor Perry Miller.
Also on the appeal part, I'm just curious, like what that would look like, I guess. Would that be like an appeal of the amount, or is there like a deferral option, or like, can you explain what that could look like?
Yeah, so I think somebody could appeal based on any number of factors. One, was the land use category assigned to them correct? Is there something unique about their business that means that they're very different than a typical coffee shop, for example, that the city should take into account? If folks wanted to dig in to the ITE manual data themselves, we could share that with them. So I think as I said, traffic engineers like to pretend it's a science. It's not. This is a fairly blunt tool. I think we should be open to a variety of arguments that people might want to make that explain why it's not an accurate representation. And I think it is some fairly transparent in terms of you've got a number of trips per day. Does that seem completely out of whack to you in terms of your business? I mean, if we're saying you've got, and we'll note this will be confusing for folks, but ITE counts each trip kind of twice. It's got each end it counts trip ends. So when somebody comes someplace and then leaves, that's actually 2 trips in their mind. But anyway, say that there are 50 trips a day, 100 translating to 50 trips a day at somebody's business. And they know, yeah, I've got 2 employees. We come in the morning, we go out for lunch, we come back, and I typically only see 15 customers. That's another 30 trips. This is out of whack. So I think we should be open to folks making any reasonable argument that they think makes sense.
Okay. Yep. The follow-up question. Is it a follow-up question?
Yeah. Thinking about that appeal process, I'm wondering, I don't know the feasibility of this, but is there an opportunity to have businesses report ahead of time what their traffic might be on an average day? I'm sure especially businesses that have a point of sale system or something, they probably have data somewhere stored, and like to do that proactively, I guess, and get those numbers from them and compare rather than move forward with the process and then deal with the retroactive appeal process?
So, what I would propose is essentially both. So this fee wouldn't go into place until October, just because of the way our ordinances work. So this will be, there'd be a first reading on August, at the first meeting of August, the second reading at the second meeting of August. It doesn't go into effect for 30 days because it's an ordinance, so it wouldn't go into effect until we're already in September. So it would first show up on the October bill. So my communication, I hope to get it out this week, or it'll go out next week, if not this week, would alert folks to the fact that we are going to have an appeal process. We wouldn't set that in motion, I don't think, until August 5th, if there is a first reading of it. But I think folks could be ready to present their case prior to the fee going into effect.
I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
Council Perry Miller?
You can go.
We've talked a lot about the fee structure and the appeals process. And I have probably a few questions around the idea of putting it on the ballot. And that should come as no surprise, because I think I've been asking for a version of that along with, you know, in response to the PSU study and for a few years. I've been asking about it, is what I mean to say. So my first question is, what would be the soonest we could put it on the ballot?
I believe we are still in time for the November ballot if we were to file. I think it's the same petition deadline as elected officials.
Just point of information, are you talking about a levy or are you talking about putting this on the ballot?
Yeah, a levy.
Okay.
Yeah. And just as a point of history, when we created a fee for the library when the library district, when the county stopped funding the library, that's the most succinct way I can put it. And we sustained the library with, I think, a $3 fee for quite a while. And then the county created a special district, a special district that passed, and then we removed the library fee from the water bill, and that memory might be a little fallible, but I think that's generally it. We may have moved $1 to another fee, if I remember, but so it was an opportunity where the community was able to choose to base the payment into those services on a district, and we had an opportunity to take it off of the water bill, the library fee off the water bill. And I thought, you know, that was a positive outcome, and certainly our community really appreciated it. I feel very strongly, and along with some of the testimony that we heard tonight, that the single most equitable way that we could have this fully funded police department is through a tax levy. And I think it's important to remember that those levies are based on property values. And so those folks who carry the largest property values in our community arguably probably can afford the levy the most, carry the larger dollar load, whereas people who live in very low value, vulnerable situations are not asked to carry the largest part of the burden. And whether that correlates with police calls or demand, I don't know, but it has worked for so long, so well. It seems like an opportunity we're talking about. I would like to ask that this council consider additional information at the August 5th meeting, so that is a true option for you to consider that night. And for this council to take a little bit of time asking questions about the type of information they'd like to have if they were to discuss that as an option for that night. I don't want to take up much more time of this discussion. So, but that's what I would ask this council to ask. If there's any additional questions about a levy that you'd like to have answered on in August as an opportunity to consider it for that time, please do so. I'm going to go to Councilor Perry Miller, and then I'll come to you, Councilor Penamroff.
I just had a very quick question, Alex. A couple of the speakers talked about retail types of businesses and what the fee could be expected to be for them, because that wasn't on your chart. And it sounded like it would be in the same range as salon-ish.
The best category in the ITE manual for just retail is the small strip retail plaza.
Am I just not seeing that
Um,
in your chart?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I don't, frankly, I certainly could reconstruct what I did to generate that chart, but I'm looking forward to having much more specific information out to folks, as I said, later this week or next week.
Councilor Penamroff?
Thanks. I also want to echo the sentiments you expressed, Mayor, about being interested in a levy. And the forms that would look like. I think what I'd like to see is options in terms of asking for a levy that could, fund the entire police department and variations. I feel like there could be, in fact, a combination of a levy and a fee. I'm not sure I'd be in favor of that, but I'd be interested in, staff's thoughts about how that might be structured. I think that, central point, the idea of using this methodology and squishing it so it doesn't hit as hard on the small businesses probably would alleviate a lot of that concern. But I did want to actually drill down a little bit on the methodology. So this is the methodology that's really all about trip generations, developed by traffic engineers. In its development, it was not intended to, am I correct that it was not intended to represent, police need?
Absolutely. You're correct.
And yet you said it's a good proxy for that because, I'm wondering if there are any other communities, and this is more out of interest, if there are other communities that have taken that methodology and overlaid it with some other criteria that could be indicative of the kind of activity that takes police time, so that we have something that's kind of imperfect, and then maybe other communities have said, well, this could work a lot better if we overlaid this. And coming from a profession where, we do a lot of data stuff. It seems to me that there's probably some universities or some places where they've done that kind of calculation to figure out a commercial rate that does seem fair. But that's more of a curiosity question, because I think I'm leaning towards asking our voters about this, asking how much they want to pay for police services, or, as I've said in previous meetings, the idea of reducing that service so it's not 24/7 is something I believe to be worthy of consideration. And I think I had one more question around this is, let's say this council passed an ordinance that for this fee, that ordinance could be referred to the voters, correct? And I'm just wondering, with a certain number of signatures, Talentonians could say, no, we're going to put it on the ballot. You're not doing this, council, without a vote. And that's relatively small number? Is it what, like 100 signatures or something? I don't know. Nobody knows off the top of their head, but
I
it's
think
something
it's-
that's very
yeah.
doable.
Yeah, I think it's the lower of a percentage of the registered electors or 100. And it's in the city charter. So I could probably get that for you very soon.
Okay,
I want to ask a question on the levy and then I'll take your question. It would be interesting to know or learn, at the next meeting. And I just want to point out that, this is the interesting thing about public testimony, is you really start to hear, indications of what might be preferred. And it might offer an opportunity to reconsider. So with that, I would be interested to know, what we're trying to do here with this fee increase is to cover a gap of funding. And that is an approach, that's to me a little bit of like trying to put a Band-Aid on a gap where one of the things I asked earlier is what would be the total dollar amount? What would the fee have to be in order to make the police department whole? And I guess the question I'd be asking for the levy would be, how could we look at this as not just we're trying to cure a funding gap, but what levy do we need to move forward in order to get the police department funded by a tax rather than just trying to fix a funding problem? And I would hope that if we are going to look at a levy, that we ask that question, that like, how do we fund the police department, not how do we fix a funding gap? And so I'm hoping that my colleagues share that question and that we can talk about that some more. I'm going to go to Councilor Medina.
I was going to say, I think I have a follow-up, just a follow-up.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I having that exact same thought of like, the levies are only usually for a certain amount of years, so it'd be interesting to find out what could be done during those years. So that way, by the end of it, we have a plan to fully fund the police department without like increasing fees by 50% for everyone, or something like that. Like that opportunity to figure out how to fund it in a sustainable way.
Councilor Penamara?
Yeah, the other thing, if we talk about permanent property tax, the other thing that comes to mind is, a service district. And whether district, maybe that includes more than just talent, would be an interest. But I know it's a lot of homework, but it might be something that could go on the list.
Councilor Greider?
Um,
Am I too loud?
I have a question for Alec.
It's
Really loud.
our stuff.
So seeing some of this for the first, or this last few weeks, or so, being new to some of this, there's on page 5 of the packet, Alex. There's it says 350,000 for public safety surcharge for this coming year. That's the proposed plan, right? And so my question is, what do you know what amount of that is from businesses versus the residential?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason I may have missed it somewhere, or you may have shared it before. Sorry.
No, of course. So what's the proposal before you all would, I actually spelled this out, and I don't know if it ended up in one of the news articles, but the proposal that you all are looking at would generate $335,000 from residential customers. They're currently paying 95% of the 230,000 that we're getting. So that's increasing the residential contribution by, I think, about 120,000. The commercial increase, the commercial share would become 110,000, and that's above the very small contribution that they currently make. So that's about another 100,000. So that's a net increase of just making sure my numbers are calculating.
Well, I think, I mean, that gives me
Yeah.
an idea. It's a smaller percent, because you said this is only about 100.
Yes, so it's what I'm comfortable and confident to say is it's increasing the residential contribution significantly
But we have.
and the commercial both.
We have just heard from mostly business owners,
Mhm.
property owners. And so again, without like, being here until a few weeks ago, were there emails coming in from residential concern? Has there been concern?
Yes, so the previous outreach has focused more on that residential. And there certainly have been public comments opposing and requesting the city consider other options.
Okay. Before my time. Thank you.
Probably if you want, I probably get access to that information if you wanted to.
Back, if
Yeah.
there were email, yeah, I can just look back. But tonight was open to anyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this wasn't a specific business focused.
So it was, but both possibilities or both proposals were included in the utility bill and in the talent news review. We did send an additional letter specifically to the non-residential customers because there hadn't been as much engagement or I think frankly awareness of what the proposal was.
Great, and that was kind of, next question was how much how much it's been put out there. So.
All right, are there any other questions or comments? Councilor Perry Miller?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the thoughts and the sentiment of the mayor and Councilor Panamaroff. I think that as well as many of the speakers, I would definitely be open to having further conversations about alternatives. And I think, really being willing to get creative about how we talk about this, including changes in service level, changes in service district. I mean, I think if there was ever a time to have that conversation, it's going to be now. I really appreciated all of the speakers, but I really appreciated Commissioner Volkart bringing up the PSU study. And I know that we haven't looked at it in quite a while. I plan to review it. It'd be nice if that could be sent out, especially for our newer counselors as well.
Absolutely.
I just have one last comment, and I meant to make it earlier and I didn't make it. In previous discussions about fees, and fees have never been a favorite choice of our community. One of the things that I really appreciated about hearing early on is that when we impose a $5 fee, we're imposing it on the smallest apartments in the biggest houses equally across the board. And while I appreciate that $5 is not a lot of money for a small apartment of a struggling family, it's a couple gallons of milk. And So well, not anymore, huh? Yeah. But, just the flat fee. The flat fee across the board to all people of all financial status is something that really needs to be deeply considered when we're talking about fees. At least a good discussion should be had about that. Whatever the case may be. If there's no other comments or questions, okay, Counselor Martin, and it is 6:40, and so if we can maybe go another 10 minutes or so, but Counselor Martin and then Counselor Perry Miller.
Yeah, Alex, this maybe is a question that I could ask at a later time because it's mostly just about like a process, but let me know if this should happen another time. But my question, I guess, is if this goes to a vote and residents approve it, that's it. If it is not approved, if residents decide not to move forward with it, the issue then comes back to council and we deliberate again on how to address this issue. I'm assuming that's the process. And my follow-up question is like, what's the deadline? We're trying to get this figured out, of course, like we need to get it figured out, but if it goes to a vote and it is not sorted through a vote, then what?
So one of the questions that we need to consider, you all need to consider, is whether it's an advisory vote or whether you're actually referring something, a proposal to it. So I think that
Okay.
depends on what you choose to put on the ballot. That's my understanding. The deadline certainly is coming up. I am frankly skeptical, not skeptical. I think to be successful, a proposal would have to be really well thought through. Although we do have time to get something on the ballot this year, if you all wanted an advisory on this fee increase on the ballot this year, I think there are a number of things that we could put on the ballot this year, but the possibility of really having a thoroughly thought through and successful campaign for a 5-year operational levy, let alone a new taxing district, is probably not feasible.
Counselor Penamara?
Yeah, and isn't May in an odd year a better time to vote something like that?
There are also some strategic considerations about which election you might want to propose something.
I would hate for this decision to be constrained by, when is the best opportunity. I definitely hope that we have a conversation, and I would like us to also talk about those concerns that you just brought up in the same way that I'm asking us to look at other concerns. But I think it's going to be really important for us to have as much information as possible about all of those things. And maybe then we are also asking, if this came up, actually, we're also asking ourselves to look at a temporary measure while we head towards a design plan. Counselor Penamara, which would have been the combination thing that you brought up, Counselor Penamara, or at least that's how I interpreted it. Counselor Penamara?
Yeah, to answer the question, to look at the question about what is the deadline as far as solving the problem of a structural problem in our budget. I just want to say, I think there is more time. I do appreciate staff wants to close this as soon as possible to make us as stable as possible. But I just want to remind the council in that we have a healthy ending fund balance. We will continue to have a healthy ending fund balance that will be shrinking as we approach. And, but it's not something that if we don't solve it this cycle, that we won't be solvent as a city. So I think there is some time, and also I think the good thing about a levy is that a 5-year operational levy is it will prompt the discussion about the level of service that is appropriate to such a small town and what people want. Or as was raised, you know, do we feel safer when we invest our money in other things other than police? So it's a rich conversation that I think this community would be really interested in having, and I look forward to that.
If I could just add, because I know this is all going to inform August, adding some conversation around what Fire District 5 District Board Member Volkart brought up about how they're seeing efficiencies by combining services with a larger district. It would be interesting to revisit the idea of combining our services across 2 communities and maybe not being such a small service district. All right.
Mayor, if I may, one, I want to address the question I fumbled earlier. And I was hesitating because I thought I had spotted a error in my spreadsheet and was a little panicked, but I realized that no, it's right in the first place. So the additional business revenue that is in the proposal is about $95,000, and the additional residential revenue is about twice that. And I'll save my 2 cents on what you all are discussing for the staff report.
Great. All right. Hold on. That comment made me a little nervous, Alex. And just because of the way I heard it. So I'll save my 2 cents for the staff report, but do you feel comfortable that you have a list of the questions that we're asking, and that and do you feel comfortable that you understand the different items that we want to talk about in terms of options?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So just to give you a flavor of one of those things that's running around my head is there's, of course, a desire to find a better solution. I think the options are clear. It is reduction in services, it's a fee-based solution, or a tax-based solution. I don't want anybody to expect that staff has something other than that to propose to you all.
Okay. All right, thanks. And that's not what I heard, that you had something else to propose. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you meant by 2 cents.
Absolutely.
All right. If there's no other questions or comments, seeing none, I'll adjourn this meeting at, yep. Oh, that's right. That's right. Pardon me. Thank you. Yeah, so next item on the agenda is June 18 council minutes. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. And I'll preface my comments with, we are transitioning some of the work. So you'll see some different formats. We're experimenting with a couple different software formats. And if there's anything you see that you don't like or that we're missing, please don't hesitate to note that. For instance, your packet didn't have the page numbers on it tonight, but so we're ironing some of those things out. Relatedly, on the minutes that you have before you doesn't actually have the signature block on it that you would normally see, and that we will add if you approve these. Finally, we did this in a little bit of a rush. It is the June 17th meeting. There is a complaint about the public process through which the new replacement city council members were seated. We believe that there isn't any basis to it, but for the sake of transparency and also strengthening the completeness of our response, staff are requesting that you all approve minutes for June 17th. I know you haven't had a chance to review them thoroughly, but we would be of course, happy to bring back a revised set if there's anything that you all notice on August 5th. But as I said, it would be helpful, I think, for our response to OGC if you could approve them this evening.
I think, given the community concern, that was raised, I'm gonna give, council 5 minutes to take a look at the minutes. And, if you need more time to read it, just let me know, but I think we can complete this, tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alex.
I have a question about something in the minutes. Shall I wait until?
Yeah, why don't you mark it up and then we'll, so with that, we're gonna take a minute. That's also to, if there's any Scrivener errors that we wanna,
Should be quick.
yeah.
When I. It's relevant.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there's Counselor Collette and Counselor Farrar.
Yes.
Oh, it's a Collet. That should probably be fixed now.
The
because
spelling?
It doesn't, it's not.
If you'll just mark it up, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk about
it's
it,
because it's the vote is.
yeah.
wrong.
I'm asking everybody to mark your things and we'll talk about it right after.
Then the scriveners are that it makes it sound like.
Rain it in there, Counselor Penumra, rain it in.
If I go for the sound of my name, so.
Mark it up.
It's a weird one, so.
Counselor Greider, I think you're probably ready to make some corrections.
Yeah, just had one thing, because of the inquiry around the appointment, I wanted to make sure this wasn't an error. So on 3.3, selection of new counselors, it does say Nicole Greider, receiving 3 first place votes. And I think it's really great that we're including the, ballots. But I don't know that that's correct based on these that are included. I think there's 2 first place votes, but not 3.
Yes, but that's after reallocation refers to the process that's gone through with ranked choice voting. So.
Oh, the ranked choice.
Yeah, so a majority vote was required. So the ranked choice voting established the 3 first place.
Okay. Thank you. I just didn't want to leave that as an error.
Okay, so that remains. And are there any spelling? I think the Counselor Colettes are supposed to be Counselor Collet.
Yes, I see 2 of those, one on 3.3 and one in 4.1.
Counselor Penamara?
Yeah, and then after that point, there were 5 people voting. So where it says 4-0, it really should be 5-0. That's our,
Yes.
all the votes. 8 instead,
Yes.
9-2, and then 10-2.
Yep, and 5.1 is missing the 2 new council members.
Actually on that, Alex, we moved 5.1, we moved the pollinator project or the pollinator week
Oh,
proclamation up to
so
3.
that one's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, that's
fine.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that were 5-0 listed 5 counselors.
Right. Right, and on 8, we're just missing the yes behind Councilor Perry Miller's name.
I just want to say this new format, if you're doing research, I always start my research with written minutes, just because it's easier to find what you're looking for on the written minutes than it is to try to look for the timestamp on the recording. And there's enough information in all of these where it just makes it super easy. And I really appreciate this format for that purpose. I do a lot of research on minutes, and this is, I think, going to be really a neat format.
Good. One other correction I noticed on the item 1 present, it should really be on that first line, and Councilor Colette Perry Miller, period. Councilor Collet attended remotely via Zoom. I think it currently could be read to say you all attended via Zoom.
Good point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dave?
Mayor, back on 3.3. I think it's important to make this distinction. The actual decision was made by motion and vote.
Yeah.
2 different motions and votes. The ranked choice was a way of letting each other know what your initial preferences were. You had the opportunity after that to vote no on each of those motions, which nobody did. So what that really means is the ranked choice discussion was deliberation prior to a motion and vote. And therefore was not a decision in itself.
Yeah,
So I would recommend saying in 3.3, follow the 2 rounds of votes without and the vote rather received the most support in the first round. In parentheses, and maybe. And needs to be spelled correctly. Martin received the most support in the second.
that makes sense. The actual votes were oral, and they were in a roll call after a motion.
Correct.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any
Oh,
other?
it-
All right, so if there's no other comment,
No, I was gonna offer to go back through them because I think I've got them all here, but we have it recorded as well, so I think a motion is appropriate.
Entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as amended. Counselor Penamara,
I move to adopt the minutes of June 17th is the correct date. Okay, June 17th, 2026, as amended.
A second.
we have a motion and a second to adopt the Talent City Council regular meeting minutes of June 17th as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Thank you. And the second was that was that Councilor Martin?
Yeah.
Councilor Penamara,
Yes.
Councilor Medina,
Yes.
Councilor Greider,
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Perry Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting at 7:00.
Thank you all. Thanks, Dave.